And then in today's market, there's two different things. There's pre-approval. So for anyone out there that's a first-time home buyer that says, I'm pre-approved, doesn't mean a whole lot in today's market. So the best thing to do before you go buy in today's market is to be underwritten. Go to your lender, get the pre-approval, and then go through the underwriting process.
All right, welcome into another episode of Create Great Real Estate. Today we have special guest April Tussing, who is in the house. She's a real estate agent in the Manhattan Beach and overall South Bay of California area. April, welcome in. Thanks for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been in Manhattan Beach for about 15 years. We own just above Highland and in the sand section of Manhattan Beach. I have twins that are 12 years old, and we've raised our kids here. And I don't think my number one fear is and dreams are having to sell my house.
Okay.
I've dreamt about it. I've had nightmares about it. We never want to sell our home. It's something that we want to give to our kids one day and have them raise their kids. I absolutely love Manhattan Beach in the South Bay, and I love being a real estate agent here.
Beautiful. Manhattan Beach is such a great space to be for multiple reasons. So today's market, speaking of which,
yes.
You are seeing, it's 2023, for those of you seeing this right now, late 2023, and you have 7% interest rates, you have people running away from the market. There was a really big rise in peak of people selling and buying not too long ago. And now in a lot of places in the country and in the world, you're seeing things slow down a little bit. So what's your opinion of how we got here? Why are we here right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have a lot of information to cover.
Let's go, notes.
Okay, so Manhattan Beach tends to be a seller's market historically,
right.
Because we have incredible appreciation. But over the last 2.5 years, our interest rates decreased. We got lower interest rates, and our owners got locked in to that interest rate.
Right.
And so what we're seeing now is that they love their mortgage, then they like the idea of not selling their home, right? So some people that historically would sell, they're like, oh, I've grown out of my home, I want a backyard, my kids are older, I just don't like my house that much. In Manhattan Beach, those people would historically sell, so we'd have a lot of action. But right now, they're more in love with their mortgage rates, and so we're seeing a very low supply of homes on the market in Manhattan Beach, like record low. That's created a very big bottleneck in supply.
Yeah.
So, and then right now we've got our inflationary economy, total shaky economy. Our interest rates have increased. You say 7%. Media will tell you about 8.5%.
Right.
And that just creates a slower market, right? But then on top of that, for Manhattan Beach, you have the reduction in supply. So that's where we're at. Where do we go from here?
I mean, you have this situation where, like you said, people buy Manhattan Beach. Why? The beach, the sun, all these California amenities, and you find that people want to meet celebrities and all this sort of thing. They want to become a celebrity, right? People finally get their space in Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, Redondo Beach, other places in the South Bay. And interest rates, for the people who are newer to this, what's low? What are these interest rates that people have that they're wanting to stay locked into now?
2.5% to 3%.
Okay, so 2.5% to 3%. Give us a picture as a real estate agent who's selling houses in this area. What is the difference that a person might see with the 2.5% to 3% interest rate versus a 7 to 8.5% interest rate on just a monthly mortgage? Like, what will that change for them?
Well, it's having flexibility. So, and this isn't going to really answer your question, but it's understanding that if you buy now with a 7% interest rate, it's going to be flexible. For a short amount of time, you're going to have that high interest rate, but the minute that interest rates decrease, and they will, they're going to go down to, you'll see them in the 5s.
Right.
Like the days of 2.5% to 3% are long gone.
Yeah.
We'll probably never see them again. So we have to help shape the narrative and the story that, hey, 5%, 5 to 6% is going to be the new norm. So get used to that. But to answer your question, so if you're like, I don't get 2.5%, 3%, I'm going to buy at 7%. That's flexible. Okay. So you have, for the next 6 to 9 months, you have to pay that higher interest rate, but then you're going to refinance and you're going to get into a lower interest rate. But what you did was, as you got into the market, you build equity then, and you don't have to pay the price when all of the buyers come back into the market. Your home prices are going to increase, and you're going to have a much higher demand with low supply. And then what's not flexible is what you buy your home for,
right.
And that's going to be more for more dollars over here,
right?
So it's not necessarily about what does that look like. It's just it just looks like you have to be flexible. And what do they say? You marry your home and you date your mortgage, right? So did that answer your question?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. And people who are in these better interest rates from the time that they started and now have to deal with the new interest rates, because I agree. I think the days of 2% interest rates are not coming back. And so ultimately, to paint the picture for people who want to potentially buy a house, if there's a house in Manhattan Beach, let's use a round number like $1 million. You're not really getting much in Manhattan Beach for under $1 million. So let's use $1 million. Right now, you might pay $1 million for your house, but in a mortgage, say you're at 7%. This is the amount you're paying. But if that house appreciates, then you're going to have a house that's worth something more later. That's going to be an important conversation for people who want to buy, because the longer you wait, like you said, the more that you're going to have to pay later. So right now, we've been in this market and people are running more so from the market. But there's a lot of people out here who've been in the market for a while who are staying in and or getting in. So best practices right now for people who are home buyers, who want to become a home buyer, and or even considering becoming a home buyer.
Best practices for a buyer, I would say, is it's do research and then choose one horse to ride. Like, don't work with a bunch of buyers agents, because I don't feel like you're gonna get the best advice. You wanna hook up with somebody that's an expert in the area, that's passionate about their job, and that can give you really good sound advice.
Right.
So choose one agent when you're gonna go with.
Right. And then how about for people who are trying to sell?
Yeah, same. I mean, it's still a seller's market. We are seeing more inventory coming out on the market. We need about 6 to 7 months of inventory for it to shift over to a buyer's market. So it is absolutely still a seller's market. But again, you have that same issue. They're not selling because where are they going?
Right.
Where are they going? They're not going to walk away from their 2.5% interest rate. So you only have the people that have to sell for life reasons. They've lost their job, they're empty nesters, they want to live outside of California. So those are the only types of sellers. And if you look at Manhattan Beach's marketplace for the amount of sellers that are out there with that storyline, it's very, very limited. In that case, you still want to hire an expert in the area that's going to know what your home is worth. They're going to get you top dollar, and they're going to be able to find the buyers that are out there. And there's a lot of buyers still out there. There's shadow buyers though, so you have to be careful, because they're all waiting. All buyers are waiting in the shadows for those interest rates to go down. And so you have to find the buyers that have had the conversation and know that right now is the time to get into the market, because prices are holding strong in Manhattan Beach. That's a big bonus that we have. Not only do we have high appreciation, but you have prices still holding strong, even in the low demand.
Yeah. And so if you see a market where prices are just cranking fast, like things were 6 months ago, a house might list for $1 million, and then a seller starts to learn, oh, I'm getting 15 offers on my house. So one offer might be $1 million, and the next one's $1.25 million, then $1.35 million, and then up and up and up. And so everybody starts to game that into, well, we're just going to list our house onto like some astronomical number, and we'll see if somebody bites. So if you're dealing with a market like that, seller's market, like you said, if the people who you're talking to right now who are saying, I might have some interest in buying, or can you show me around, or I want to check out some open houses, what things are feeling important to them in their pursuit of a house?
I would say, well, it first comes down to working with an agent that understands, like, that runs comps for you. So you're able to go in with a conversation and say, hey, this house is listed at this price. This is what I think it's worth. Because what's happening right now is lenders, especially your big banks, that put all of the loan, if you're getting a mortgage. If you're buying cash, it's a different story,
Right.
because you're just getting in the market, you're getting equity, and that's a little bit easier of a conversation. But lenders right now, they have a box. Big banks have a box, and they have to check their box, and they are not going outside of the box. And so you have to make sure that you have a buyer that understands that the price of the house you have to get it for the right price.
Right.
Homes are like appraising. If it doesn't appraise and you're having to come up with more cash, buyers are not super excited about that right now. So you can't just list your house for this crazy amount. Right now, we may have seen that, but those prices, if you look on MLS right now, all of the prices are decreasing because the sellers are like, ooh, I kind of missed the window of when I could do that, and maybe with more cash buyers on the market. But for any buyer that is going to have a mortgage, it has to be there. It has to be.
Has to appraise.
Yeah, it has to appraise. And so you have to do the research, and you have to know what that house is valued at right now as well. And there's, comps are never perfect,
Right.
but lenders are not lending the money unless all of that is kind of a perfect scenario.
Right.
And you're going to run into big issues if you don't get your house to appraise and that it was priced too high.
Right.
There's a lot of issue going on and lenders are being very tight with their money because what do they see coming?
Right.
A recession.
Right.
Or we're in it, we're not in it, we don't really know, but they see that coming and they're being very, very strict on getting a mortgage. It's hard.
Yeah. So to make that one part make sense for the people who might not know, if they're trying to get a house to appraise, so you're a buyer, and again, just use a round number, $1 million house. It's being sold for $1 million, but the appraisal comes back and says this is worth $950,000. So what happens to the buyer in that situation?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, if it's $50,000 off, and you have to put around, 15 to 20% down, depending on your lender. If the value to what they're lending you, the ratio it can be like 30% one way or the other. They probably wouldn't have you come out of pocket with any more cash. But if you're talking the home price is $1 million and your appraisal comes in at $700,000, that's an issue, and you're going to actually have to come up with more cash.
Right.
It could be $150,000 to $200,000 more cash, and most first home time buyers don't have that money. They've just kind of scraped to get into the market. So that's not a good transaction. That's honestly not a good realtor working with them to know their expectations. But I do want to touch on that point for first time home buyers. People love to underwrite themselves, and they look at their finances and they say, okay, this is what I can afford, because they looked at some standard calculation that says, okay, I'm $1 million buyer. It's really important to go talk to your lender and get underwritten. What you don't realize is you could think you're $1 million buyer, and you could be a $1.8 million buyer, and you didn't know that. And that opens up so many more options for you. So it's super important if you're a first time home buyer to talk to a lender and be a part of that conversation. Yeah. I can't stress that enough. And then in today's market, there's two different things. There's pre-approval. So for anyone out there that's a first-time home buyer that says, I'm pre-approved, doesn't mean a whole lot in today's market. It's just a piece of paper that a lender gave you. They did a few calculations based on your income. They didn't see the fact that your bonus was $500,000 last year, and this year it's $100,000. Right. They don't see all that information. So the best thing to do before you go buy in today's market is to be underwritten. Go to your lender, get the pre-approval, and then go through the underwriting process. That underwriting takes some time, and you have to give a lot of information, but then once you're ready, then you're actually ready. And that's gonna take, if you're looking to have like a 30-day escrow, Some escrows aren't even closing on time because you didn't get underwritten.
Right.
And it's taking forever with the banks. Best thing is to get underwritten. Then you'll know where you're at, and then it's a much smoother process.
Okay, that's really good advice. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people taking more time than they'd like to with the housing situation, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so some ways to find success in today's market.
Yeah.
That's, I think a lot of people want to figure that out,
Okay.
specifically in today's market, and you being a person who's very well versed in this area, you've lived here for a while, you've worked here. What are some ways to find success?
Yeah, so you want to be a part of the conversation. You want to know, you want to see the headlines, you want to know where the marketplace is. Right now, it's a buyer's moment. There is a lack of opportunism in the marketplace right now, and it's not as exposed as much as, especially realtors, as we would like. There's no competition. Like I said, the rates are high, but it's going to be for a short amount of time. When the rates go down, you're gonna have a frenzy in the marketplace in Manhattan Beach and South Bay. Just all these buyers. There's gonna be so much demand. Supply is gonna stay, right? Because we talked about this. You have all those mortgages that people are just in love with, and they're not gonna stay. So you're gonna have no one selling their house. The people that do start to sell and you're gonna have 15 buyers coming after your home again.
Right.
And so any of your buyers that maybe you could only spend this much, you're only underwritten for this amount of money, you've got a cap on your budget, and then what's gonna happen is all the prices are gonna go back up by 5 to 10%.
Yeah.
And so that price that you're paying for your home, that $1 million house, is now 1.3, and that's probably over your budget.
Right.
However, you look at this 7.5% interest rate and you're like, oh, but that's way too much money for me to spend on a monthly basis.
Right.
But it's short term. So you have to think long term. You have to get into the market now and build equity. In LA County, on average, our yearly appreciation is just over 5% on your home. So you can quickly do that math. In Manhattan Beach and Hermosa, it's anywhere from 9% minimum to about 15% appreciation on your home every year. Okay, so that's $100,000 to $200,000 on your home. Okay, so it's like, do the math, and that's, so yeah, I've got this 7%, but right now you have no competition, so you're not getting in these bidding wars with all these probably more qualified buyers than you, because there's a lot of qualified buyers in this marketplace who are just like, I'm just gonna wait. They don't need to buy, right? Some people just don't need to buy. They could be heavy investors in the market, and this is gonna be their third home. There's a lot of those types of buyers that are gonna be out there. They're gonna come in and just wipe out any new buyer that wants to get into the market. So always the advice is get in now, create your equity, and then you'll get to refinance later.
Yeah, I mean, that's a reoccurring theme from you, and I think it's appropriate to the audience, is when it comes to real estate, so many people are waiting for the right time.
Yes.
Right? And that's something we'll talk about as we get to the end of this. Like, we'll want to know when the right time is. But I mean, you're hitting a little bit of it now by saying, when it comes to the market, now's the time.
Yeah, and the other thing is rates aren't as dire as, we talk sevens, right? They're actually not as dire as you think they are. It's really important to have a conversation if you're getting a mortgage with a lender. For example, Wells Fargo right now, you have to probably give a little bit more money, but they have a friends and family. If you put $1 million in their bank, you're getting an interest rate in the low sixes.
Okay.
If you have money and you just transfer it to them, they're real flexible on their interest rates right now. And that's important to know. Like, it's not 7.5%, it could be 6.25.
Right.
I just sold a house, they got 6.25%. So now you're looking at, when the interest rates do go down, you're in the low fives, maybe high fours.
Right.
So have that conversation too. To be successful in today's marketplace is definitely having the conversation with a lender to find out what am I looking at. Media will say it's 8.07.
Right.
Wells will say it's 6.25. It depends on the day, and it depends on how much money you can give too.
Right. So if somebody wants to slide their interest rate, let's say, again, for the people who aren't sure, there's always the option of paying a little bit more cash up front to get your interest rate down, right?
But let's say
there's a person who feels like, based on all the numbers they've run, they've been underwritten, all these things, they don't necessarily have the cash to be able to put more on the front end.
Mhm.
Have you found or seen any ways that a person would be able to minimize their interest rate now as opposed to waiting? So say there's a person who's like, okay, Avery, you got me. I don't want to wait. I want to go
Yeah.
now. I've seen the house of my dreams, the location of my dreams, and myself or my family or whoever, we're ready to go now. How can somebody best get themselves situated to be able to act now?
Well, it's not going to be a situation where you're like, I'll put more money down
Right.
and get a lower interest rate. It just doesn't exist. But you can get a lot more money with your money in the bank right now. And so I would recommend you actually put the minimum amount down.
Right.
Keep your money in the bank, getting 5 to 8% with just money sitting in the bank.
Mhm.
Put as little as you can down. Just eat up that interest rate until you can refinance. But there's other options out there, like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came out with owning a duplex. I think it's November 18th. To own a duplex, you usually had to put down 25 to 40%, depending on your income. But right now, if it's owner occupied, so you own the duplex, you live in one unit, and you rent the other unit out. Starting November 18th, you only have to put 5% down, 5 to 10% down. So that's a huge advantage for some first-time home buyers that want to buy a duplex, and then they'll have a little bit of investment income on the side. So there's unique things, and there's a lot of products on the market to look at, and it doesn't have to be just this, here's the interest rate,
Right.
here's the standard money I have to put down, and here's, what's going to be my monthly out of pocket.
Yeah, more hard and fast. So
Yeah.
you're basically saying if a person really wants to make it happen, there's some creativity they can go about.
Creativity and educate yourself.
Yeah.
Have the conversation. Don't think that you can do it yourself.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it.
Don't Google it. Right?
Don't just Google it. Don't
Yeah.
just Google it
Yeah.
that way. Okay, so interested to hear the most wild or interesting
yeah.
experience in your real estate life career so far.
Yeah. So I sold a house in the Manhattan Beach tree section on Pacific recently, and we were past our inspection. Why are you laughing?
I'm just
Did you
ready
know
for a good story.
We're past our inspections, past our appraisal, everything's set to go. We're closing in like 2 weeks.
Okay.
And the seller agent calls me and he's like, oh my gosh, I have a late disclosure I need to tell you about. I'm like, okay, tell me. So he's like, it was a trust sale. So the owner, woman, had passed away, left it to her 3 siblings, her children. And he was sitting in the room with them and they were signing a bunch of paperwork. And it dawned on this now 57-year-old man. He's like, oh my God, 40 years ago, and this was an original 1930s home, 40 years ago when I was like 13 or 14 years old, he dug under the garage, under the home, under the cement, where you had to like crawl into the crawl space. All the homes in Manhattan Beach are built on sand, right? And so they're lifted, crawl under the crawl space, jump through a hole in the ground, and he dug the sand out and made a 10 by 10 room under the cement of the garage. And going back in, there's like a crack. There was a crack under the single car garage. And I'm like, oh, I see. So what did he do? And I was like, what did he do under there? What was he doing under that? And that he was growing weed. He had a marijuana
had a weed
factory under there. And the first thing I thought was, this guy was kind of ahead of his time.
Yeah.
And my husband was like, hold on, how did he get like hydration?
Yeah.
And so we went back, and sure enough, there's like a hole where electricity was pulled through and hydration. So he had a weed den under the house, under the home. And so that was unique. And that is a unique story to have to go back to your buyers.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I just need to tell you that 40 years ago, the kid, the now 57-year-old, was buying, smoking weed under his mom's house. Yeah. I mean, think of it was a dead body.
Like literally, I don't know if I've heard a more interesting story from Manhattan Beach.
So what do you do from there? You have to like push sand back in, cover it up, repair it. It's all good. But it was a moment in time where my buyers were like, hold on a second.
Yeah, like pause, press pause. What a disclosure.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow, but it all worked out.
In the end, we ended up asking for a $10,000 credit in escrow to repair the weed den.
It's just like called the shenanigans
And
credit.
it's called a good faith.
Yeah.
It's called good faith, $10,000 credit back, so everyone's happy in this
That
situation.
needs to become a pretty standard addition to the real estate Bibles. Just what are we gonna call that? The shenanigan credit.
Yeah.
Like,
Weed den.
Yeah.
We call it the weed den. Yeah.
wow.
I know, it's good.
That's a pretty good story. How long ago was that?
A month ago.
This is fresh story.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna have to like scroll right up and check it out just to get the visual, like imagine it. That's pretty insane.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Wow. Okay. So, what purchase is appropriate for what person? To rephrase that question and make it a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
There's people who grow up. There's people who are already grown and they have sometimes really big dreams. I want to live in Manhattan Beach on the Strand, looking out at the ocean every day. And there's some people who undersell themselves. You know, I could never afford to live in Manhattan Beach or even Southern California. That's where the question roots from. So, what purchase is appropriate for what person? Try to answer that for us.
Yeah, I want to just come back to if you're a seasoned investor or a first-time home buyer, the right purchase is what you can afford right now.
Okay.
It's getting in the market, building the equity, seeing the appreciation. Buying real estate is never a perfect science, right? It's always like, I'm gonna buy when I'm ready. I'm gonna buy when interest rates are lower. I'm gonna buy, and it's all, people just wait.
Right.
I'm renting, like, people just wait. And so the longer you wait, the less equity you're building, the less money you're making.
Right.
So it's two different, lots of different buyers out there. Seasoned investors are shy right now too, and they've been doing this for a long time, and they're probably cash buyers.
Right.
Developers, they're not buying as many homes right now, but it's being smart about it. It's getting in the market right now. It's understanding how you get in the market, how much cash you have to have, what it's going to cost you. If you have to stretch yourself a little bit, it's okay. You're going to make the money up in the long run. And I think it's going to lead to your next question, is when the best time to buy is, because everyone wants to know that. When is the best time to buy? So the way I would say that is, how long have you been in the market?
Right.
It's another way to rephrase it. If you've been in the market for 5 to 7 years, you're gonna kill it. And if you have been, you're killing it, because you're making so much more on your money. We just had, Manhattan Beach in general had a 10% this year, 2023, average of 10% appreciation on their home. That's a lot of money that is going back into your bank. While you're thinking this is, so when you're talking to a lender, go over a 5 to 7 year plan. Put in the rate of appreciation in our marketplace, and then look at the numbers. Don't just look at the numbers right now with the interest rates and the cash down. Look at the whole picture and what that does for you financially. So it's not when is the best time, now is the best time. The earlier, the better. Don't wait till interest rates go down. Buy now. Also, you can sell now, because prices, even though the demand is low, prices are holding strong.
Right.
And start building that equity. That is the best advice. There's like a funny Instagram meme out there. I wish I had it. And it's just like, it's just says a woman running, like, your real estate agent said buy now, and then you didn't, and you're looking back at all the money you could have made and how much that home is worth that you're sitting in right now that you could have, all the equity you could have made.
Yeah. So if people are renting, they're throwing money out the window.
Yes.
If people are waiting to buy, they're throwing money out the window. What you're saying is, people need to buy now, because whether it's right now, whether it's 5 to 7 years down the road, in this area especially, your money's gonna go up.
Yeah, and let's talk about what people are paying in rent right now. If you're living here, you're paying so much in rent, right? So take that money and do the math. Like, just sit down with somebody that's a professional that can do the math and show you the rents that you're paying right now are super high, and the rent rate that you're locked into, that's changing too. So you need to look at the rent rate that you got locked. If you rented in Manhattan Beach over the last 2 years, you're paying so much for that rental,
for
like
sure.
incredible. And rent rates are finally dropping, which is good. But if you're paying, you know, $5,000 to $8,000 for a 2 to 3 bedroom, something kind of nice in Manhattan Beach, that money can go right towards your mortgage, and you're also making equity. And I get it, it's scary. Like, it is very scary to take that leap in this marketplace. I get that, but working with a professional to kind of walk you through all of that and understanding the home buying process is kind of key to success.
Yeah. And this is what you're finding with all the people who are your colleagues, your affiliates. I know that there's people in the area who you work with who you want to give a shout out to.
Oh yeah, I mean, so I work with Bayside. So it's like an umbrella company. They power all of our technology.
Okay.
A company called Side out of San Francisco. And it's an umbrella company called Bayside, and Robin Bryn Strokey started it, and you see them walking down the Strand, you see their signs everywhere. 2 great guys born and raised here. And then I work under, and they kind of house 5 or 6 little boutique real estate companies that are local to Manhattan Beach. I work for Molly Hoban Williams at the Hoban Company. We're right by Page's Bookstore,
Okay.
right in that little nook of Manhattan Beach. And Molly's been in the business for 40 plus years. We actually just celebrated her grandfather's 90th anniversary this weekend for owning an agency. But these are veterans in Manhattan Beach that, you know, I get the pleasure and the privilege of sitting with them on a daily basis to understand what our market's doing. So this information is not just from me, it is from, I actually called Bryn Strokey this morning. I was like, hey, I have this question I want you to help me answer. And that's, why are we here? Like, why is this market here the way it's going right now? And he's like, yeah, here's, you know, so the messaging I'm getting is from veterans in the area. This is not just made up stuff. This is honest, true stuff from people that have been buying and selling in Manhattan Beach for 5 decades.
And these are people who are making money, people who are
Making
making
a
other
lot
people
of
money.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
anybody who wants to get in that camp should come see you all,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Say hey, and figure out how they're going to buy now.
Yeah.
All right. So if people want to find you, how do they find you? Social media, not like anybody. It's
Call me.
Halloween coming up. Yeah, don't find her at her house.
Yeah, thehogancompany.com. April Tussing, social media. Yeah.
Okay, we'll make sure that the people know. April Tussing, social media. All right, anything else you want people to know about real estate now?
Other than buy now, I'm pretty sure that message was really
Buy now.
clear. Buy now,
Buy
but
now.
just educate yourself. Be a part of the conversation so that you know what's going on in the marketplace, and where your money's going to go. Because you really can't go wrong buying in this market. Ever.
Shout out to the South Bay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for being with us. If you want to find more, subscribe, Chris P. Austin on YouTube and all other media streaming platforms. We'll see you next time.